Hi, my name is Elizabeth Fleetwood, and I'm a secondary education major with concentrations in U.S. history, government, and geography. I am also currently working on a certification in English as a second language. Over the last 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity and privilege of teaching and learning at Penn High School. I taught 88-minute classes every other day because of block scheduling in an ESL classroom. In each class, my students are of multiple different levels of English proficiency. Penn High School's demographics are very different from the demographics at my former placement, Clay High School. Whereas Clay was extremely diverse, Penn's high school's population is 75% white, with the remaining 25% being shared by African Americans, Hispanic, Asian, American Indian, etc. Therefore, being that I am teaching an ESL class, my classroom is made up of a very different demographic, all of my students being English language learners with culturally different backgrounds. Another sharp difference between the two schools is that while almost 70% of students at Clay High School qualify for free or reduced lunches, 80% of students at Penn High School have paid lunches, with only 20% qualifying for free or reduced meals. Penn High School's socioeconomic status is significantly higher than that of the surrounding area. Penn High School also has much higher achievement than the average for the state of Indiana on standardized testing. Whereas only around 20% of students passed the 10th grade I-STEP exam at Clay High School, about 60% of students at Penn High School passed. Within my ESL classroom at Penn High School, I had students with a range of levels in English proficiency. For example, I had students from India, Mexico, Venezuela, Honduras, Saudi Arabia, China, Vietnam, Jordan, and Turkey, all in the same class. Some at a level 1 in English proficiency, while others were at a level 3 or 4. As well as having a classroom full of students with a variety of different ethnic backgrounds and different levels of English proficiency, my students were also from a range of class, freshmen through seniors, all within the same classroom. The demographics of my classroom influenced everything that I did, from planning to classroom management plans to instructional strategies and even employing discipline. All of these factors were crucial to ensuring student achievement and engagement. It cannot be stressed enough the importance of student-teacher relationships. Building relationships has been one of the greatest challenges for me here at Penn High School due to the shorter time period of my placement, block scheduling, and spring break interrupting my efforts. This only forced me to double my efforts to get to know my students by remaining 100% engaged with them during class time and volunteering to participate in after-school activities with them, such as the Multicultural Festival, a dodgeball tournament, and the Community Connections Fair. As my relationships developed within the classroom, so did their motivation to perform and engage in classroom activities. The goal within the classroom is not only to develop academically successful individuals, but also civil and responsible citizens. In order to achieve this goal, the teacher's responsibility to create an environment where students feel safe and comfortable in order to allow students to learn and perform at their best. Therefore, within the classroom, I believe that it is crucial as the teacher to demonstrate appropriate behavior, inclusivity, and speak using positive communication. This can be done by getting to know students' backgrounds. In order to avoid using any language or gestures that may be offensive within their culture, as well as using students' prior knowledge and interests to connect students and engage them in classroom learning. I also believe that it is important to develop procedures rather than rules, as suggested by behavioral theorist Marvin Marshall. By emphasizing the importance of procedures and establishing a routine, students will develop positive associations with procedures that allow them to become more successful rather than being forced into obedience. I am also a firm believer in the classroom management theory and strategies developed by Marvin Marshall. As an educator, my goal is to make learning and instruction efficient. The goal of classroom management is to maintain civil classroom behavior. Civil classroom behavior means that individuals are respectful, polite, cordial, and well-mannered. This is achieved through students demonstrating a high level of responsibility. Responsible, meaning that one pays attention, makes a strong effort, and does what is right without being told to do so. Marshall's belief is that students will increase in positive behavior when given more responsibility, as it develops intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic. The overarching strategy to implementing this theory is by helping students to analyze, reflect on, and adopt personal behavior that brings them success in school. In a classroom where students are often working at different rates and are encouraged to collaborate in order to practice listening and speaking skills, lessons are planned with fluidity. Lessons are planned in a way that allows and encourages students to participate in class activities and complete assignments at their individual level of English proficiency. In order to do this effectively, it is key that instruction is differentiated in order to daily include all domains of learning: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. It is also important to establish relationships of respect with students in order to effectively employ the overarching strategy designed by Marvin Marshall, which is to help students analyze, reflect on, and adopt personal behaviors that bring them success. I believe that this was an area of success for me throughout the last 6 weeks. As this class is designed not only to help them with their English proficiency, it is also a place where they can come to class and receive tutoring on assignments or material from other classes that they're having a hard time with. Therefore, there are often students working on a variety of schoolwork. My cooperating teacher, typically because of the multiple purposes and goals of this course, creates projects in which students have a couple weeks to complete, allowing students to develop their work at their own pace. However, with this structure of learning, classroom management skills are very important, as students can easily become off task and lose important class time. It is important to give clear expectations and for students to acknowledge their role in the classroom, which is to behave responsibly through their classwork and interactions with others in the classroom. Therefore, by circulating the room, I am not only able to answer questions and conduct short side conversations that allow me to develop student-teacher relationships, but I'm also able to monitor and encourage students to act responsible by asking them to reflect on their daily goals, how they have been using their time, and whether or not what they are doing currently is helping them to achieve their daily goals, or if it is hurting either their own learning or if it is disrespecting the choice of others to learn by distracting them. This short, reflective conversation typically is all that is necessary for students to revert back to appropriate behavior. Then, by asking them what they need to do to meet their daily goals, students help establish an awareness of their behavior and to establish actions that will be followed to prevent them from repeating the same behavior. Another way to develop student responsibility is by giving choices. I believe that it is important to allow students to have a choice whenever possible. This includes allowing students to help set classroom procedures that they believe will benefit their ability to learn, to have a choice in the mode in which they complete assignments or projects, and I believe it is important to recognize who is in my classroom and what experiences and values they bring with them. These experiences and values are viewed as advantages, as collaborative and social construction of knowledge is encouraged within the classroom. My goal is to maintain the highest degree of respect for my students' beliefs, values, and cultures, and to give them opportunities to safely bring their experiences and knowledge into the classroom and use it as a means to enhance their learning. One example that demonstrates my commitment to inclusivity and student learning can be depicted through a cultural project developed for my students as they have been preparing for a multicultural festival. They were given the opportunity to choose what is important to them, what they wanted to share about their own culture, and to write a script and record a verbal presentation about their cultural background. By giving students the ability to choose what they spoke about while providing general guidelines, students were engaged and excited to share their projects. Like Marvin Marshall, I believe that discipline is a part of classroom management and should not be viewed as a tyrannical punishment given to students for behaving inappropriately. I believe that discipline should focus on developing students' self-discipline by eliciting consequences rather than imposing them. For example, after asking students to identify, reflect, and assess whether it is appropriate, students who do not revert to an appropriate behavior will be elicited consequences. For example, asking a student whether they would like to write reflective paper including a plan of action for future behavior, or whether they would like to go to the office and complete their work. By giving students an option in their consequences, they are able to take responsibility. As Marvin Marshall says, people do not typically argue with themselves. Therefore, it is a way to resolve conflict while developing students to become responsible for their own behaviors and become more responsible citizens in the future. This strategy empowers students to make responsible decisions rather than forcing obedience upon them. Not only have the experiences I have had here at Penn High School helped me to develop as a professional, but have helped me to recognize where my greatest room for growth is and where my strengths lie. I realize now that I will never be done learning. I will need to search out resources and establish relationships with other teachers and staff members who I can collaborate with and learn from in order to continue being the best teacher I can be for my students. By participating and volunteering in after-school activities, I will have greater opportunities to develop relationships as well as crucial student-teacher relationships. I will be able to connect with students better and get to know their likes and dislikes as well as their learning needs. I've also had the opportunity to attend a staff committee meeting for the Community Connections Fair and experience the importance of community among teachers, volunteering to help with the Multicultural Festival, where I was able to learn about students' experiences and interests, and I also participated in a dodgeball tournament to raise money for cancer research and volunteered to work for the Community Connections Fair. Overall, my experiences at Penn High School have developed my ability to plan and implement instruction that meets each student's needs and to develop strong objectives that meet state standards and goals of English proficiency, classroom management, and disciplinary skills, as well as develop a strong value for student-teacher and colleague relationships. Each experience has bettered me and prepared me to be a more effective and confident teacher in my own future classroom, and instilled a motivation to continue actively developing myself as a professional.